right, let's take a closer look at slope. So if we have a line that slants upward from left to right, okay, so something that looks like this, slanting upward from left to right. What does that say about the slope? Well, I can find the slope if I have any 2 points, right? And I can look at the change in y over the change in x. So if I look at, how the slope from this point to the other, I'm going up in a positive direction, right? So my delta y is positive, and my delta x is also positive, right? So this is delta x. So delta y is positive, and delta x is positive. So you can see if I take delta y over delta x, the change in y over change in x to find the slope, then I get a positive slope. Now we could also go from one point to the other by going down in the negative direction. So my delta y would be negative, right? And then over in the negative x direction, right? So the other case I could look at is I could look at a delta y that's negative, and a delta x that's negative, right? So delta x could be negative. It's negative, both negative. Okay. So again, if I look at the change in y over change in x, which is slope, a negative over a negative is going to give me a positive. All right. So when I have a line that slants upward from right to left, it has a positive slope. Positive slope, right? So because delta y over delta x is positive. Positive, right? It's either a positive over a positive or a negative over a negative, but either way, I get a positive slope. All right, so let's look at the case where we have a line that slants downward from left to right. So maybe something like this. So there's a line, slants downward from left to right. And let's take a look at the slope of something like this. So I can choose 2 points, and I can look at the slope from one point to another, right? So it's the change in y over the change in x. So if I start at this point, I could go up in the y direction, but then to get the other point, I have to go negative. So this is my delta y, this is my delta x. I have to go in the negative direction. My change in x is negative, right? So I could get the case where delta y is positive and delta x is negative. Negative, right? And if I look at the slope, delta y over delta x, positive over negative, I'm going to get a negative. I'm going to get a negative slope. Now I could also take the case where, I look at going from this point to the other point. In this case, I have to go down. My delta y is negative and my delta x is positive, all right? So in the second case, I get a delta y is negative, and delta x is positive. All right. So either way, I get a negative slope. So negative slope indicates that the line is going to be slanting down from left to right. Or if I have a line that's slanting down from left to right, I should expect a negative slope. All right. So delta y over delta x is negative. Okay. So slanting upward from left to right is a positive slope. Slanting downward from left to right is a negative slope. All right, so let's take a look at a couple other situations. All right, now we don't have any slant. Now we have a horizontal line. So let's draw what that looks like. All right, horizontal line. All right, I could take 2 points and look at the slope though, right? Now, in this case, to get from one point to the other, I don't need to travel any distance in the y direction, right? So my delta y is 0. And I only have to travel in the x direction. So so delta y is 0 for any delta x. So no matter what 2 points I choose on the line, to go from one point to another, I don't have to travel in the horizontal or the vertical direction at all. So delta y is 0. So the delta y over delta x is just going to be equal to 0 over some number. 0 over anything is 0. So the slope is 0. So a horizontal line has a slope of 0. So let's summarize that. So therefore, the slope of a horizontal line, slope of a horizontal line is 0. Okay, any horizontal line has a slope of 0. All right, what if we have a vertical line? All right, so vertical line is up and down, right, like this. If I choose 2 points on that line, now I don't have to travel any distance in the x direction. I only have to travel in the y direction to get from one point to the other. So now delta x is 0 for any delta y, right? But what does that mean for the slope? Slope is delta y over delta x. And I can't divide by 0, right? My delta x for I choose any 2 points on this line, then my delta x is 0. My change in x is 0. I can't divide by 0. I cannot divide by 0. It's illegal. You cannot do it. You can sneak up on it, but but you cannot divide by 0. Okay, so the slope is undefined. Undefined. Okay, undefined. So if you have a vertical line, the slope is undefined. So the conclusion that I'm going to write here is, therefore, the slope of a vertical line, vertical line is undefined. Okay, so these are important things to know. You know, what does a positive slope look like? It slants upward from left to right. A negative slope slants downward from left to right. Right, you're going downhill from left to right. A horizontal line has a slope of 0. A vertical line, the slope is undefined. All right. Well, that sort of takes care of, gives you a sense of how slopes work. But let's do example 2 now. That was a long way to get to the example 2. All right, but important information to know. So it says sketch a straight line that passes through the point -2, 5 and has a slope of -4/3. So first of all, we need to draw our coordinate plane. So we need a set of axes to give us some frame of reference and some sense of scale. So that's what I'm going to do first. So there are my axes, and I want to plot this point -2, 5, and I'm just going to assume that each one of these grid lines is 1 unit. So this would be -2, right? And then I would need to go up 5 units to +5. All right, so the point -2, 5 is going to be right here. Now I know that my line has a slope of -4/3. All right, so the slope is equal to -4/3, but I can get 4/3 by either, going down in the y direction by 4 and over in a positive direction by 3, or I could go up in the horizontal direction, the y direction, by 4, and over in the negative direction by 3. Okay? Either way, I can rewrite this slope as either -4 over +3 or +4 over -3. It's the same slope, right? So that gives me an idea of where to go to get the next point, right? Because it's going to be either 4 down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and in the negative direction, and then 3 over in the positive direction would give me another point that's going to be on my line. Right, I'm just going, oops, down by 4. Let's see if I can draw a decent line. And over by 3. Okay, -4 and +3. All right, that'll be another point on my line. Or I can go up by 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And over by 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that will be another point on my line over here. So I'm going, maybe I should make these dashed lines, going up by 4 and in the negative x direction by 3. So this is a +4 over a -3. All right. So now I have 3 points and I can draw my line. And so I can just, let me actually switch colors here. It might be easier to see. It's a little hard to draw a line with this pen, but I'll try to do the best I can. There we go. Straight enough. Well, there's my line. I've sketched the line that passes through -2, 5 and has a slope of -4/3. All right, let's take a look at this other question here. It says, if x increases by 6 units, what is the corresponding change in y? All right. So, well, I know that the slope is a -4/3. All right. So anytime any ratio of the change in x of change in by the change in y is going to reduce to 4/3. It's going to be equivalent to 4/3. Okay. So if I have a change in y of 6, okay. So wait, no, change in x is 6. So I have some delta y, but my change in x is 6. Okay. And I want to know what that change in y is. Then I really just need to solve this ratio. And you can see that really, if I multiply the numerator and denominator by 2, I get -8/6. And that would be equivalent to -4/3. Or I can just solve this ratio, right, and solve for delta y. So delta y, well, what I could do here, I don't always know how you learned how to solve ratios, but one way is to cross multiply. You could take 3 delta y, right? Multiplying these two is equal to -4 times 6, -24, right? And then you get delta y is equal to divide by both sides by 3, and you get -8. Okay. So either way, you can just think of it as equivalent fractions and create a fraction that's equivalent to -4/3 with a 6 in the denominator. Or you could think about solving this ratio. All right. Now you can also see that on the graph here because I plotted the 0.25, but I've also got these other two points. And if you look at the distance here, this x distance from one point to another is 6, right? And so if I were to look at going from this point up here, and I didn't calculate what that was, it would be 5 plus 4 is 9. So it's got a y-coordinate of 9. And the x-coordinate would be -2 minus 3, so it's -5, right? That's the point -5, 9. This point down here, we started at -2, 5, and we went down by 4 and over by 3, right? So this is the point 1, let's see, we take 5, so 1, 1. I guess we could have seen that right there. All right, but if you look at that, there's the change in x, right? From -5 to 1 is a change of 6. And you can see the corresponding change in y is 8. So you can see that just with those 2 points. All right, so for an increase, if x increases by 6, then y decreases by 8. So that's my final conclusion. All right, well, I will meet you in the next video for example 3.